Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have another PowerPoint for you, a series of Component 1 English language lessons for you to work through. So like last week, the same applies. I've uploaded the extract as a Word document with this PowerPoint. I've also, for those of you I know that haven't got access to a printer, broken the extract down onto 4 slides within this PowerPoint. So either way, I'm hoping that you will all have access to the extract that we are using for these next couple of lessons. Again, like last week, this is a lesson that is longer than an hour. This is a whole week's worth of English language lessons. They are not for you to whiz through, they are for you to do slowly, a little bit at a time, and they would last you the entire week. So let's move on. So first things first, ladies and gentlemen, just to get us back into the swing of things, I have a passage for you here. You can, if you want, you can print the passage off. Just print the slide off and stick it into your books, or you can write the passage into your books, and I want you to find as many techniques as you possibly can in this passage. I want you to highlight them or underline them, and I want you to annotate them. So say what the technique is. Try and do as many as you possibly can. It's going to take you a little while to get this done. If you're writing it out, obviously it's going to take you a little bit longer. You might want to write and spot techniques as you go. If you're printing it and sticking it in your book, that's also fine. So remember, I want you to find as many techniques as you possibly can in this passage, underline them or highlight them, but make sure you annotate them. Make sure you name the technique beside them. When you've done that, I want you to move on to the next slide. Okay, so just to help you out and just to make sure that you understand that you are on the right lines, if you have managed to find any of these techniques, then you're doing really well. All right, so I have highlighted a variety of techniques. I've used different colours. I'm just going to talk through the techniques that I have highlighted. So first things first, in red, the first sentence, the terror which would not. So you'll see there that that is a long sentence, ladies and gentlemen. And you need to think about why you would use a long sentence in your writing and why this author has used a long sentence. So you want to think about this first word, the terror, and then we have a long sentence. So this long sentence reflects the pace of the terror. It reflects how this terror went on for so long, because we're told in the sentence for another 28 years. So the length of this sentence reflects the length of the terror. Then we move on and we have the boat bobbled. All right, so boat bobbled is just a piece of alliteration. But then we move straight into bobbed, listed, righted. So we have a triplet there. So you might have just done highlighted the boat bobbed. You might have highlighted bobbed, listed, righted. Either way, one or both, then you're doing really well. Then we move on. We have dived bravely. Well, we're talking about a boat here, and a boat does not dive bravely. A boat cannot be brave. Therefore, we've got a piece of personification, an example of personification. And then we're going to move through, and I've not picked out all the pieces, all the techniques within this passage. I've just picked out some to give you an example of what you could have found. So I've highlighted in yellow the word dark. Now I've highlighted it twice, which means you should automatically be thinking, some repetition. We've got some repetition here. And we know as a reader that everywhere is dark. The traffic lights are dark. The houses are dark. It's not creating a particularly pleasant atmosphere. And then we're told there had been steady rain for a week now. So an example of pathetic fallacy is this continual steady rain that falls. It doesn't lighten the mood of what we're reading. It decreases the mood. It lessens the mood. And then we move on to the next paragraph in this extract, the small boy. So it's just an adjective, just an ordinary adjective. We're describing the boy. However, you maybe want to think about what that adjective implies. It implies that possibly he's innocent, that he's vulnerable, just a small boy. And then he ran cheerfully along. So this is juxtaposed to the rest of what we're reading, the rest of the description where it was dark and it was rainy. This small boy, this small vulnerable boy, he's cheerful. He has no concept of what's around him, making him possibly more vulnerable. And then we move down to the last couple. So we have a comfortable, almost cozy sound of the rain. And that's how he's feeling about it. And again, it's alliterative, comfortable, cozy, but also indicating to us that he's unaware of the implication of the pathetic fallacy. He doesn't understand, making him more vulnerable. And then we have right at the end a short sentence, a statement. He was 6. Surely too young to be out on his own, making us as the reader slightly concerned for his welfare. So that was just a little task to get you into the swing of things again for our English language. We were picking out the techniques, but also whilst we were picking out the techniques, we were subconsciously thinking about what those words suggest to us. And all of this helps us write those extended answers in our Language 1 component. So once you've checked your annotations against my annotations, then we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so we are using again the same extract. So we've highlighted lots of techniques within this. I'd colour coded it. We should now be able to think about how atmosphere has been created in this story opening. All right. We made comments as we went along, and we did consider the specific words that we've used to create the atmosphere. So what I want you to do is I want you to use this extract, and I want you to have a go at answering this question. How is atmosphere created in this story opening? Now, we've got certain words and phrases which lead us to think about the atmosphere. It's dark, it's raining. We know that there was some kind of terror, but yet we don't know what it is. And we have this small boy who's out on his own, quite oblivious to things. Think about how the atmosphere is being created. I want you to have a go at answering this question. I want you to time yourself, give yourself 10 minutes to answer. I'd like you to include quotations in your response as well. And if you want to, you can plan it first of all, like we did in the previous PowerPoints that I've set for you. But I'd like you to give yourselves 10 minutes to answer this question for me, please. And then when you've done that, I'd like you to move on to the next slide. Okay, so ladies and gents, we are going to move on to the next passage. I hope that you are all appreciative of my amazing graphics that are appearing on your screen. So I wanted to just introduce you to the extended passage that we are going to be using for the rest of the series of slides. There are a couple of things I want to warn you about. Oh my goodness, there's a bit of a sweary word twice. And I'm hoping that we don't have many sufferers of coulrophobia before we carry on. You might want to look that up. As I said, I've downloaded or I've attached a Word document for the extract, but the next 4 slides have the extract on. What I would like you to do is at your own pace, read through the next 4 slides. Okay, I'm not going to be talking over them. I want you to read through the next 4 slides. You will be able to go back to them as we move on, but for now, I'd just like you to read through. Okay. Okay, so you've read the extract once. You can obviously go back to the extract in your own time. You can obviously pause me talking to have more time to think about the task. But what we're going to do is we're going to look at a couple of questions. I'm going to get you to do a little bit of extended writing, and we're going to use the extract that you've just read. So here we go. Questions at the top. How do you react to what takes place in this passage? So we're going to use the whole of this passage to answer this question. How do you react to what takes place in this passage? So the first thing we need to do is think about the ways that we react to things. I've given you an example. We've got a reaction of surprise. You could have a reaction of shock, a reaction of concern, a reaction of fright, and any others that you can think of. I'm not telling you the answers to everything. You need to have a little think about things yourself. So what I'd like you to do, ladies and gentlemen, is I would like you to draw this table in your books. So you're going to have a column for quotations, a column for the reader's reaction, like I've said, surprise, shock, and a column for your explanation. What is your explanation of the quotation that you've used? My example is the quote that I've used is, it reminded him of, and then there's a dash, her, and that reaction is surprise. The interrupted sentence denoted by the dash shows George's surprise and ours too. We share George's feelings. So that's my explanation of my reaction to that quotation. So your task here, ladies and gents, is to copy out this table, to copy my first example, and then I want you to find at least 5 more of your own. So at least 5. So you have 6 in total. For those of you that are looking to extend yourself a little bit, you might be looking to give yourself 8 examples. You are using the entire passage, ladies and gentlemen. It might be a good idea for you to go back and reread it if you've not printed it off. If you've printed it off, go through. Maybe underline things, annotate things, but I want you to complete this table with my example and a minimum of 5 other examples. And once you've done that, you can move on to the next slide. Okay, so here's our next slide. Our next question. In this passage, the reader distrusts Pennywise. That's a statement, okay? It's not a question, it's a statement. But you need to write about the extent of your agreement with this statement. How much do you agree with this view that in this passage, we as the reader distrust Pennywise? And to answer this question, you would need to talk about your own impressions of Pennywise as he is presented and how the writer has created these impressions. So first things first, you will be making a plan. So we've done no extended writing so far. We've effectively made a plan. This is another plan. A plan to think about your impressions. So what is Pennywise like? Okay. What do you think about him? How is he described? How is he presented? What are your impressions of him? And then how the writer has created these impressions. So effectively, what words and phrases has the writer used to make you feel frightened of Pennywise, unnerved by Pennywise, scared by him, humoured by him? However it is you feel Pennywise is presented to you, you need to write about it. And you want to also think about the atmosphere that's been created, because depending on the atmosphere is probably going to depend on your impressions of him, and whether you distrust or trust him. And remember, we talked about this last lesson, that to what extent do you agree with this view? You are agreeing, all right? You are agreeing that you distrust Pennywise. There's no other way of looking at this question. That's what you need to do. So obviously, while you complete your plan here, it's probably going to take you about 10 minutes. You can pause me wittering, and then you can move on to the next slide. Okay, great. So far, we've had an introductory extract, we've looked at techniques, we've looked at a couple of questions which we've not answered yet. We have just planned for. And this is what I would now like you to do. I would like you to answer one of these questions. So either the first one, how do you react to what takes place in this passage? Or in this passage, the readers distrust Pennywise. If you're looking to extend yourself and you want a little bit more to do, then by all means have a go at answering both questions. But I only am expecting you to answer one or other if that's what you'd like to do, but by all means answer both. I'd like you to give yourselves 15 minutes for this answer. I know that you have already planned it, but I want you to think about the words and phrases that you use to express your ideas. Make sure that your sentences are making sense and really concentrate on what you're writing. And then when you've done one or both of these questions, I want you to move on to our final slide. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, a task which is linked to component 1 section B, some narrative writing, but I thought would be a good chance for us to mix things up a little bit. It's really dull if I just give you extracts and questions all the time. So I tried not to give you a lot of extract writing to do. I've left that choice to yours, one or both of those questions. But I would like you all to complete this task. Okay, and if you are going to send something back to your teacher, then I would suggest that this is the one that you send back to them. I'd like you to write the opening of a story. So I need you to make the genre clear. I don't care what the genre is, you need to make it clear. Are you going to write a horror? Are you going to write a romance? Are you going to write sci-fi? I don't mind, make the genre clear. However, you need to do the following things. You need to create a convincing atmosphere, and your atmosphere needs to link with your genre. So if you are writing a horror story, you can't be funny, all right? It doesn't work. Create a convincing atmosphere to fit with your genre. I want you to intrigue the reader so that they would want to read on. You're not writing a whole story. You're writing the opening of a story. You are going to leave them wanting more. You're going to leave them wanting to read on. I would like you to ensure that the reader, me, your teachers, has the correct reaction to a character or a situation. So obviously, horror, you need to use the correct language and structure to create that kind of reaction in your reader. Should they be frightened? Should they be laughing? The way you use your language and the structure of your writing creates atmosphere. It creates a reaction in your reader. And I'd like you, ladies and gents, to write, if you can, between 400 and 500 words. You've got 45 minutes to do this task, which is why I said this PowerPoint is more than a week's work for you. Just this one task is a whole lesson. Okay, so have a go at writing the opening of a story. Make sure you make a plan first, ladies and gentlemen. Don't just think, yay, I'm going to write a story. Make a plan first of all. And if you are going to send something to your teacher, this is what I would like you to send. This final slide, the opening of a story. And remember, I just want you to spend 45 minutes on this. Okay, thanks. Good luck.